Well, hello! And it's time for episode 25. Is it 25 already? Of the Condescending Evangelist? I have to check that. There's a way I can check it. Speed racers are out tonight. Got the window open. It's a nice night. I just want to check real quick. Yep, it's episode 25. Just went to my YouTube channel to see what was the last episode. Episode 24, last week. So this week is episode 25. Now, I didn't have anything really planned for today. And see, I know what I said, how I wanted to do this channel is I would do like kind of a testimonial portion, and I talk about something in the current events, and then I talk about the scriptures. Well, I've noticed like I'm not getting really many views, and I'm not really promoting this thing either. And it's just the way it is. I don't know what I'm putting out. I know I get copyright from. I think what I'm going to have to do is modify my intro a little bit, because I get a copyright strike because it's about 40 seconds of the song that I wrote that I get a copyright strike on. I'm just saying this retarded technology era we live in, because AI. If you look at what's going on with AI, and yet I can't even put a snippet of my own song as my intro without me getting a copyright strike. It's because it's on TuneCore. That's why. This channel is not connected to my other work. So I get a copyright strike from using my own work. It's hilarious. Anyways, I'm going to probably have to modify it. I might try modifying it tonight. Just to, put it, just to see if I can eliminate that, and then maybe I'll start getting more that won't automatically shadow ban me. I'm gonna give it a shot. But beyond that, as far as how I want this channel, develop this channel, well, you see, I wanted to utilize the Torah. I was actually wanting to utilize that component to it and see if I was getting and there was patterns I was noticing in the news and in conjunction with my own testimony, but it really hasn't done much. It hasn't bore the fruit I thought it would. So I'm gonna just talk about different topics that I think need to be talked about. Well, Trump has kind of done a 180 a little bit on the Epstein stuff. Well, at least with his rhetoric, and he's put it out there. I saw him quoted saying he wants to release everything, he just doesn't want anyone to get hurt. Okay. Why didn't you just say that? Could have avoided a lot of nonsense. Just say, look, I want to release everything, but I'm concerned. He did say that early on, but then, Trump is kind of, he gets all hot and bothered if people don't see things exactly how he sees it, I think. And so maybe he's still, look, I think we all, even as we get older, we all have a tendency to think we know everything, but then we realize, well, we don't know everything. No, we don't. That's the truth. We don't know everything. And so Trump's got to learn. It's like, not everyone sees the world as you. And so when people when when you were asked originally, and then was it Cash Patel that came out and said there's nothing to it? And I wonder if it was because of what Elon Musk said, you know, and maybe Trump is in the files, but it's because he was someone who actually outed Epstein to the FBI, I think, or to local, was it Palm Beach police? You know, I don't know the whole story there, but it's like that might be why he would be in the files, because he's someone who actually uh, was cooperating with law enforcement regarding Epstein. And so that's why I was perplexed about the whole matter, because I knew something about that. And, uh, people are then running crazy with what they thought regarding it. And then, so I just started thinking, he's compromised. The whole Stormy Daniels thing, probably. I mean, I still don't believe that. But, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we shouldn't. We think, oh, what's going to happen? What's the harm? What's the harm in doing that? You know, and so what Trump is concerned about, and rightfully so, innocent bystanders, getting hurt. Because if there's really volatile information that could affect, you say, well, I don't care about the, I want justice, and I want justice. But the deep state, you got to think about it. They're not just going to sit back and let it happen, be exposed. And so I'm saying, look, I said things. Look, I said what I said. I said Trump sounds like he's compromised. I also said, well, because of, COVID, ever since COVID, Operation Warp Speed, $6 trillion, to avoid, the V-shaped curve, right? With the V-shaped recovery, right? I want to avoid Great Depression. Okay. But the economy took major hit with Biden. Oh, the election was stolen. Blah blah blah. Well, this is the problem. We live in a fake left-right paradigm. That's the issue. I listen to conservative talk radio today. Look, I loved Rush Limbaugh. I miss Rush Limbaugh. But see, even I had to stop listening to him for a while. Why? I couldn't tolerate the shilling for the Bush administration. That's what he was doing. I just couldn't tolerate it. Once I figured out Bush was basically part of the cabal, yeah, I was like, and I'm listening to Rush, Schill, and people who are talking about Republicans. You got to vote with Republicans because they're not as bad as Democrats. I'm like, you don't understand the problem. A lot of these Republicans are compromised. Look at Hastert. And I wonder about Thompson. Governor Thompson, because, like I said, the whole pension deal that he signed into law, that he didn't understand compound interest. That's the official. That's the line I heard. I'm like, nah. I think he was compromised. Something. They had some dirt on him to get that through. You know, um, probably in part to create the scenario that existed with Barack Obama. In part, you know that they do things. These deep state actors, they do things, and then I'm like, okay, is there some sort of honeypot operation that our government is involved in? And people say yes. Well, how do we can we put it to an end? And that's why Trump's like, I want to release, but I just don't want anyone getting hurt. No. I don't want to tell. Look, this is the problem. This gets back into why I created this channel. What I have to really get people to understand. If Trump isn't, let's say, okay, Trump's not a compromise, but he is genuinely concerned about people getting hurt, innocent people getting hurt. Well, then he's telling you, essentially, yeah, there's a honeypot operation that's going on, and it can't be stopped. You say, why can't it be? Why can't it be stopped? Well, it will be stopped, but it's part of the whole Book of Revelation thing that's going on. That's the thing. I think that's really what's going on. And does that mean Trump's the man of lawlessness? Could he be the man of lawlessness because he knows what's going on and he won't put a stop to it because he's afraid of innocent people getting hurt? Well, it's biblical. He probably can't do anything about it because it's something that's ancient. Epstein is just one figure. This type of thing that's been going on with Epstein has been going on forever. And so it's going to go on until, this is why it's a Book of Revelation thing that's going on. The Book of Revelation is going to have to be fulfilled. We know what happens in the Book of Revelation. Most High returns. But it builds up to what? Armageddon. I don't get why can't Trump, why won't he do it? Well, maybe if he does it, it accelerates that whole deal. He may be, I don't know. People talk about him being Cyrus. What did Cyrus do? Well, Cyrus freed the Hebrews from Babylon. And he enabled the Hebrews to go back to Israel and rebuild the temple. Because there's what's going on right now in Israel. You got hostages. Remember what Trump said? I want to release all the files I just don't want people getting hurt. You think that the attack that happened October 7th, 2023, you think that there was any connection to that attack in the Epstein files? Did Biden threaten to release the Epstein files? I'll have to look back. But I know this. I do know this. It was 2 years to the day before Biden was in where I grew up, Elk Grove Village. Say, what does that have to do with anything? Well, 1948. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you. 1948. What do I say? Book of Revelation. There's something to it. Something to it. You know, all I can say is Trump is going to do what he does. Is he doing it based on what the Most High is telling him to do? I think yes. What about Biden? He was also, I think, installed by the Most High as a precursor, in my opinion, to who the man of lawlessness is going to be. Man of lawlessness is going to declare himself God in the temple of God. Like I said, why was Biden in Elk Grove Village? What was he doing? On October 7th, 2021, what was he doing? He was promoting, he was trying to get companies, employers, to get their staff vaccinated. I just used a term that, quite frankly, is like a no-no on YouTube. I recognize, but it's what happened. And so if YouTube algorithm wants to look, I'm already shadow banned severely. Like no one really knows that this channel exists, so I don't care. But it's like, remember who implemented it and when it was. What was the date that the emergency use authorization occurred? December 11th, 2020. And that was 2 days after my dad passed away. Oh, and Elizabeth Warren. I think those little tables there on the Senate floor are probably not meant to be leaned up against. You'd think someone who's been a senator as long as she's been a senator for would know that. Yeah, we got problems in this country. one party is clearly out to lunch. The other party is in denial, I think, the Republican Party. Someone say, well, they're both in denial. Well, no, the Democrats, I don't care if it doesn't matter. Have you ever been around a dementia patient? It doesn't matter. You know they're demented. It doesn't matter what they think. It's the Republicans that bother me because, well, the Democrats circle the wagons, right? The Republicans, once someone gets caught, oh, they're out. So it's like they play the shell game, I think. It's annoying. It's terrible in my mind what goes on. And so, talking back about what I want to accomplish with this channel, like I said, I'm going to try something with the intro to make it so that I'll truncate it. I have a way. I think I know how to truncate it. So maybe it won't get a copyright strike on this. We'll see. We'll see if what I do works. I don't know how much. Yeah, honestly, like I said, what do I want to accomplish with this channel? Well, I call myself the condescending evangelist. I think that's it's the nickname the Most High gives me. Why? Why is the nickname? Why is the Most High? I was kind of a know-it-all. I was kind of a little brat when I was younger. I thought I had things figured out pretty well. I realized I didn't as I got older. I didn't realize certain things. But it's like, you know, what matters is humility at the end of the day. That's what matters. Being humble. And realizing you're not a know-it-all. But see, the thing I run into is people how people love to say things like everybody's got a voice and this and that, blah blah. You hear like on this chatter of like, you got to be the best you can be, blah 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 blah. But then you hear what God is saying. Humility. It's better to be humble. And so I may not come across as humble, but it's like I try to like point out like all the chatterbots, chatterboxes too, who blah 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 blah. So you got to be this and you got to be, and I'm like, that's not how you're supposed to be though. In God's eyes. You say, well, look at Trump. He's not, he's blah. He's like that. Blah blah. He's a kind of a chatterbox. Yeah. Yeah. So how can someone like him be used by God? See right there. You're asking a question as if you think you know better than the Most High. You think that you think you have it figured out. I mean, this is some of the conjecture, some of the things that I hear from people. I'm like, see, you lack the humility to understand, like, God can use anybody He wants. That's the issue. Anybody. God can use anyone He want. He does it. The foolishness of God is wiser than the wisdom of man. It's higher than the wisdom of man. But God can use anyone He wants. And maybe that's why I'm doing this channel, because eventually people are going to watch. And people are going to realize I'm not very humble. And I think that's going to be the main purpose of this channel, is to point out the folly of being boastful and prideful. And so that's probably the reason I'm being given the title, the condescending evangelist, because there's too much. I see it with college conference realignment, college football fans. Some of them are the most arrogant, prideful, boastful nimrods you'll come across. And some might think I'm that way. I have fun. I talk about NIU being in the Big Ten because, well, the Pac-12 fans, they think they're going to be autonomous, and it's like, yeah, they could be told by people that are in the know, like Ross Dellinger, and they'll still be like, oh, he's a hater. And I'm like, you have to be pretty arrogant to not understand what has happened. That's why I follow it. It's a form of entertainment for me, if you want to know the truth. I'm somewhat entertained by it because I'm very... Well, because part of it is because I was someone who was like, NIU could be in the Big 12. And by the way, I still think they could be. Well, I mean, I think they now could be in the Pac-10 or the Big 10. What? Well, if the Pac-12, as long as I keep seeing them thinking that they can be autonomous, why can't I think that NIU could be in the Big 10? Oh, you're not being humble. Well, I'm pointing out the folly of the thinking. I really don't think NIU will ever get to the Big 10. ACC, they just have to get to R1 and AAU. Oh, that's not very humble. You have to have some fun. I think college football is my escape from the pressures of the day. When I look at like my electric bill and all my rents and all that stuff, it's like I need something to take my focus away from all that. I say, oh, you call yourself the condescending evangelist and you're into college football? Yeah, if you haven't noticed, like there's a lot of like people in the South in particular who basically will watch college football on Saturday and go to church on Sunday. Because, well, for the longest time, there was no NFL teams in the South other than a couple of cities, like Atlanta and New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Miami. But Miami's not really the South. I've been to Florida. It's like if you know anything about Florida, the further south you go, Florida, the more north you go. Actually, like more south, the furthest south portion of Florida is more like the north. So people from New York, people from Chicago, people from Boston who actually live in like Fort Lauderdale and South Beach. You have to have been in Florida to understand. Um, all I'm saying is humility. That's that's the most important thing. Is to know that you don't know it all. And the problem I've run into is even my own family. I've run into this problem in my own family, um, where it's like I've somehow become the accuser. When it's like, do you not remember what happened? So I've had a problem with dealing with someone who doesn't seem to understand humility, and I think I know where it comes from. People, it is tied to people in the South. These people, some of these people in the South, have no humility. And can be very arrogant and very condescending too. And so it's not just my family too, but people who come from places in the South migrate to the North and then start acting like we can change, we can fix this. In Illinois, yeah. You're gonna fix what happened in Illinois, you Southern hick. Yeah, no. That's not gonna fix it. Again, you're being, yeah, that's not being humble, right there. You know, I'm telling you, there are people in the South that have absolutely no humility. People from, and you could be from Alabama or Springfield, Missouri, and not know what humility is. You could call yourself a pastor, not really be one. You know, another reason I call myself the condescending evangelist, I dealt with. I'll tell the story at some point. I don't want to tell it now. But you know, it's like if you're gonna call yourself, if you're gonna be, you gotta make sure you have your. When it comes to being a pastor, see, here's the thing. In biblical times, in the first century, you didn't have to have a seminary degree to be a pastor. No, you know, the Bible, the scriptures outline exactly what is required to be a pastor, to be a bishop, to be an elder, a deacon. But see, we live in a different era, and so I don't know when this happened. I don't know if it's the Catholic Church that instituted this, that you need to go through rigorous doctrinal training. And therefore, you need to get a degree. And so I think that's partially what's happened with a lot of people. And then in some cases, there are people who kind of want to like, I don't know if they were wanting to go up against that system. I don't know. The point is, there was a little bit of deception that I encountered. Oh, and then, you didn't understand something basic. I'm like, oh, so it's me against you now. Well, Jesus dealt with the same thing. That's what I've come to terms with. Jesus dealt with having to, you know, be up against everyone. When you think about it, he had the governing authorities against him. He had the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin plotting against him. So for me, it's like, okay, I have my own family. It's the truth. It's nothing new under the sun, because I think, there's always been members of the family in opposition. It's nothing new. For whatever reason, in my family, this exists. You shouldn't talk. You shouldn't talk in those terms. You should. No one wants to hear it. Well, no one may want to hear it, but I think it's important. Understand, like, even Jesus himself, described divisions. I didn't create these divisions. I'm part of one, but I didn't create it. I'm partially responsible for it, but I didn't create it. No. I know who created it and who's was not willing to reconcile. And it's that simple. I don't need to go through a professional. I can tell you exactly what happened. But I won't. Not here. Because until the person that created the division wants to have an actual conversation instead of just be like flippant. Yeah, uh, that's what we have to wait for. And it's like, I'm not going to force that on anybody. No. See, it's important to understand who created the division. It wasn't me. That needs to be understood. That needs to be understood. And who's not willing to actually maybe think that maybe they might be wrong. I know I'm wrong about not totally understanding the whole situation from their perspective. But they're wrong from not willing to even try to attempt to understand. No, they go to a dark place. After years of not talking either, which is to me demented. No one does that unless there's a big pile of pride. No one does that unless there's a big pile of pride behind that. Now someone say, "Well, you're now sounding pride and arrogant." Yeah, it probably has. It may on my side of it. Yeah, it may have turned into that. It didn't start that way. I can tell you that. What I'm saying is, people need to learn how to be humble. That's the point of this channel. I may sound prideful and arrogant, but it didn't start out that way. You can't go through life thinking everybody is wrong and you're the only one right. I know that's not the case with me. I know I'm wrong about a lot of things. But there's a person I'm thinking about that I'm not sure they understand this. I have no way to really know. I could say there's probably a couple of people. Well, I could say there's more than a couple of people. That I have no way to know if these people understand they might not be right about everything. No way to know. Because when I talk to them, they act like they know everything. And it's not just a few people. I'm like, do you understand humility at all? I'm telling you, there's people that I don't know. There's no way for me to know. You can only know by talking to them. But when they talk at you, which is what's happened, there's no way to know if they understand. They might not be right about everything. So that's you're talking at. I've already said, I know I'm not right about everything. I may not sound humble, but I know the difference between pride and humility. I'm telling you, people I've dealt with. I'm a musician. Let me tell you something about musicians. Most prideful, arrogant people on the face of the earth are musicians. And you know why this is true? And you know this is true. Lucifer was heaven's worship leader. And so musicians have this inner wanting to be above everybody. Look at me. Look what I can do. You can't do this. Look at me. And see, this is the issue in my family, in part, I think. Scott, I like the band, but I want to be in the band. Well, why? Why now? Why at that time? The whole time when Eric you never came up to me and said, hey, Scott, you mind if I come and sing? Can I come and sing? Or did you talk to Eric? And why is it when I bring that up? This is what I don't get. This is why I can tell you I don't know everything. Because I don't get this. I bring it up. Why didn't you tell me? I'm like, why do you react like it just happened? Or do you think something would have changed if I would have told you? What, you're gonna decide to like I'm not going to get married. That's the one thing I don't understand. But see, he's like, oh, you should be talking. No, no. I brought this up, and the reaction was like, and so I use that as an illustration, as it's like, I don't know everything. I know I don't know everything. I don't understand that reaction. And then I tell my mom about it. Well, Scott, as your mother, I'm like, again, this is decades ago. It's not like it just happened, you stupid witch. I'm sorry. But she's the one that gave me the book, and she wouldn't read it for the longest time. So yes, I view my mother as a witch. Because who does that? Gives me a book, and like I read it, and then it's about witchcraft in the church. I'm like, you got to read this, because there's parallels here that's happening in our family. You got to read this. If you don't see them, your therapy was a waste. You're not sounding very humble. I'm telling you that when you come from a family that has dark secrets, okay, it's going to create all kinds of issues. And look, I'm not exempt. But it's like there's people in the family that just can't handle. It's like, we can't. But like once it's out in the open, it's like, what's wrong with you? What's your agenda? Do you know what my agenda is? I'm telling you it. I don't really have one. That's why I do this channel, because no one talks in my family. So I bring this stuff out here. Shut up. Just shut up. My mom would say stuff like, I want to lead worship. And I'm like, okay. And so I bring that up to her. And she looks at me like, I'm like, do you not remember any of this? Do you just say stuff and it just goes down the memory hole? Do you realize, like, you saying stuff is going to be remembered by people? This is why, I mock the baby boomers. My mom is a baby boomer. And she's as far as I'm concerned, she's a classic baby boomer. Because she would say things. Like, I would hear, I'm like, what are you smoking? And then years later, I bring it up, and she what? I'm like, I should never have lived at home after I finished college. I should have just. I did move out. Like, I'm like, my parents, they buy this house in Wheaton. I think this is classic baby boomer. They buy this house in Wheaton, and I have to live in like I have to be in the one of the small bedrooms. Okay. There's this master bedroom downstairs with a bathroom, And it's they're setting it up for her mom, my grandma. But it's like, okay, did you talk to her about now? Like, you still haven't talked to her about moving down there? I'd ask the question. After a while, I got tired of asking. Oh, but the middle grandma's gonna say. I'm like, so is she gonna move there? Oh, someday. Yeah, it never happened. You know, was she hoping like I would actually try to coerce? Was that what she was hoping? See, never said anything to me. Hey Scott, why don't you ask Grandma if she wants to live with us? I might have actually done that. Hey Grandma, want to move in with us? But that's the way my family operated. Passive aggressively. We'd do things, plan things, but never actually implement because there's a freaking step you have to act. You actually have to talk to your mother, grandma, if you want her to move there. Yeah, I know that's not very humble, Scott. That's not very. Yeah. Well, this is the kind of nonsense I've dealt with my whole life with my family because I had my other grandma, my dad's mom. I don't get why the families can't get together. I don't understand. I'm like 7, 8 years old at the time. I'm like, I don't know either. I don't know why you asked me. It's like, you think I could talk to. It's like, that's the kind of nonsense. I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make it happen? I'm 7. But it's like, so why don't you talk to. And then I find out what actually happened. But see, my mom was someone who's like, that's why she's a classic boomer. I'm like, how'd you not put this down? Why did it take me to figure it out? How'd you not even consider? Where was Dad? What he's a little above the boomer. He's like 7. Boomers started like 45. My mom was born 48. Dad was born 41. So he's like a little before the boomers. She's like at the start, basically. And so my dad was in the Navy. I'm like, was he a freaking robot? I mean, did he not figure this out? How did he not understand that the reason the families were divided was because of after it was figured out? I'm like, and so people wonder why I call myself, or I think it's the Most High, really. Because I do come across as a little condescending, I think. But it was created because of all I've been saying. And so if people wonder why I'm the way I am, you gotta have conversations with my family. It's like, okay, a TV show that has a title that's, kids aren't really going to get. Adults would be like, oh, that's a double meaning. If you watch the show. If you watch the show, it's a double meaning. Is it a little gratuitous? Yeah, if if you haven't watched the show, you're going to think it's gratuitous. If you have watched the show, you're going to be like, oh, it's a double meaning. Kind of dumb, but you get it. You get what they're doing. The thing that gets me about that whole deal, okay, is what happened after that. The excuses made after I point out one simple fact. It's your TV. Well, we only use that for watching videos. It's connected to the cable. Don't give me that crap. And so, yes, it's on channel 50. The show was on channel 50. Not a cable channel. So therefore, it's going to contain, and so I explained this. Like, well, it's for TV 14. I'm like, I watched so much content as a kid. Look, I thought Raiders of the Lost Ark was rated R. Turned out it's rated PG. Surprisingly, I thought it was rated R because it had some graphic, violent scenes. The face melting off. I don't know. I thought that was pretty gross when I saw it at age 5. Also, Clash of Titans. Medusa getting her head chopped off. That was okay, I guess. What do I know? It's just. What I'm trying to point out is okay. Yes, there's content on TV, but it's like you guys had it connected to your TV. You guys had the cable connected. You could have made a rule if you really had a problem with certain content, which blurs the line. Okay, it blurs the line. Just like Three's Company. My mom had a huge problem with Three's Company. I couldn't figure it out until years later when she would talk about her abuse. It's like, okay, well, someone's not being honest about something, I think. That's all I'm saying. Because if you're bringing that up in the same context, which is what really set me off, because it was like me going back in time, having to deal with a scenario that may have been part of contributing to a bigger problem for me years later. And I'm thinking about the next generation. I'm like, I'm just thinking about the next generation. That's all I'm thinking about. Because what's happened before will happen again. Which is why I reacted the way I did, if you want to know. I reacted that way because I was like, oh no. I know what happened to me. I don't want to happen to the next generation. I explained this to my brother. He understood. But then he did a 180. And then the fake pastor. Sorry, that's he was a pretender. Yeah, he didn't handle that situation right. And that's why there's no discussion. Oh, that's not very humble. Well, I'm being direct and honest about what happened. And you say, why are you really... Where is this really coming from? I don't know. Humility, ultimately. Look, I tried to be reconciliatory. Maybe not early on. I was really still ticked off for a long time after that. I wouldn't even talk to them. I was that ticked off because I couldn't understand why they couldn't see where I was coming from. That's when I realized I was being prideful. So I had to okay, I'll talk to Eric. I talked to Eric. I explained the situation. He got it. But then he flipped. And that is where we are now. He flipped. I'm like, you don't do that to family. And so I said something. I said what I said. It was truthful. He doesn't believe it. But from my perspective, from my vantage point, I'm sorry. That's what happened. And if he can't handle that, I can't do anything about it. God has obviously done something. He's had to obviously create a divide. Because it goes back to, in my opinion, what the heck happened? God, I like the band, but I want to be in the band. But it goes down. But that was after the fact. Something else happened. I won't get into that here. But it does involve other members of the band. Pride. Ultimately, it's the root of evil is pride. Love of money is tied to pride. That's why love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Pride is probably the root of evil. And let me tell you something. Everything happened because if you were prideful, and I have the evidence, I do have the receipts. I haven't played that card yet. I've spoken to, I think I have spoken to my mom about it. If I haven't, I will have to do that. If I haven't, I will do it. Because this is an important piece of the puzzle. That's evidence to explain everything that's going on right now. Oh, there are people that know if I said exactly, they would know. If they didn't know, they're asleep. Nothing I could do about that. I myself am not innocent because I was thinking something too at the time. But see, I recognize pride. It's in all of us. And it's easy to be proud. I basically proved in this video, it's easy to be proud. It's hard to be humble. You gotta work to be humble. It takes work to be humble. And that's something that's a problem in my family. I know this. And I'll come across as prideful. But I'm only doing it because there's people in my family that don't get it. and that this is a problem with humanity. This ultimately is what this channel is about. I will come across as prideful. To illustrate, you have to work to be humble. That's what it's about. So, Shabbat Shalom.
Goodbye, Toledo.